It's no secret that I love budgeting, but I don't love it because I enjoy staring at spreadsheets or tracking every penny. I love it because I've seen what it can make possible for people. I've watched budgeting transform thousands of people's lives, including my own. Friends ask me all the time how we afford the life that we live. We have 4 kids, they're active with sports, including club teams. We take a couple of big family vacations a year, and I left a secure career to start a business. The answer is budgeting, but probably not the version of budgeting most people imagine. We don't save money by cutting out every enjoyable thing and trying to make our lives as cheap as possible. We decide what matters to us, spend generously on those things, and work hard not to waste money on everything else. That's what I want to help you do today, along with sharing some great tips on how to save money in ways you may not have thought of before. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. Get ready, because it's coming fast and furious. I'm Tammy. I'm a certified financial planner professional, and I spent 15 years helping more than 6,000 people transform their financial lives at a Fortune 100 company. I saw people earning regular incomes quietly become millionaires, in some cases multi-millionaires, all the time. I also saw people earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year who still felt as though they could never get ahead. Now that I'm out on my own, I can talk openly about what I saw, what actually worked, and what the financial industry often leaves out. No jargon, no watered down advice, no false promises, and no sponsor telling me what I can and cannot say. This is off the record, where ordinary people build extraordinary wealth. When most people decide they need to save money, they start at the bottom of the budget. They skip a coffee run. They stop ordering appetizers. They try a no-spend month. They drive across town to save 10 cents on a gallon of gas. Now, those small decisions can help, but they're rarely where the biggest opportunity is hiding. The largest savings are usually sitting at the top of the budget, usually in that necessary expense category. Things like housing, transportation, insurance, healthcare, taxes, food, and all the recurring expenses that have claimed part of your paycheck before the month even begins. Reducing a subscription by $12 a month saves you $144 a year. That's worth doing. But lowering a major recurring expense by $100 a month saves $1,200 a year and $6,000 over 5 years. Now, both decisions matter, they just shouldn't receive the same amount of your attention. Here's what I learned from watching ordinary people become wealthy. They didn't spend every day hunting for coupons or depriving themselves of everything they loved. They built lives that were naturally less expensive to maintain. They didn't always buy the largest house that the bank approved them for. They drove practical cars and kept them for years. They were careful about taking on new monthly payments, and they had a strong sense of who they were, so that they didn't need to keep proving their success through the things that they owned. AKA, they had a strong money mindset. But they also had systems. They had food in the freezer and a meal plan ready to go. They set aside money for repairs. They planned for expenses they knew were coming. They didn't have to pay what I call the chaos tax every time life got busy or something went wrong. That's the kind of saving we're talking about today. Building a life that gives you more of what matters without losing so much money to waste, convenience, and decisions you barely remember making. Now, before you change anything, you need to know what you're saving for. Why are you doing this? Maybe you want to travel or pay off debt, start a business, work less hours, help your kids through college, or retire without constantly worrying about money. Or maybe you just simply want enough breathing room that an unexpected bill doesn't throw off your whole month. Saving for no particular reason starts to feel like punishment, and it rarely works. Now, you can force yourself to do it for a couple of weeks, but eventually you get tired of saying no without knowing what that no is doing for you. When you know what you want your money to make possible, the decision to say no feels different. You aren't just turning something down today, you're building towards something you care about even more. This helps you stick with it, especially when the research, the phone calls, the decision-making gets hard and boring. Now, before we worry about coupons, sales, or cheaper brands, I want you to look at the expenses that have the power to change your finances the most. Trust me, I know looking at this stuff is difficult. It involves looking at some of the biggest expenses in your life that you usually did once and considered locked in, and now I'm asking you to review them. Nobody wants to do that, I know. But trust me, doing this can save people hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month. They truly matter. The good news is that you only really need to review these big things like once every 2 to 3 years. Okay, let's jump in. Start with your necessary expenses, especially the ones you set up a long time ago and just set on auto pay. Write down your housing payment, your car payment, insurance, phone plan, internet, childcare, memberships, subscriptions, debt payments, and anything else that automatically claims part of your income. Then look at the total. How much of your take-home pay is already spoken for on the first day of the month? This number matters because the higher it is, the less freedom you have everywhere else. It becomes much harder to absorb or repair. reduce your work hours, save for a goal, or handle a temporary loss of income when almost every dollar has already been promised somewhere else. You may not be able to change your mortgage or your childcare bill tomorrow, trust me, I get that, but that doesn't make this exercise pointless. It gives you some things to work on and also gives you a filter for your next major decision. When you move, replace a car, add an activity, finance some furniture, or sign up for another service, you can ask, do I want to commit this much of my future income every month? Now, one of the best habits you can build up is to annualize every new recurring expense. A service that costs $40 a month doesn't feel very significant, but that's $480 a year, and that hits differently. Keep it for 5 years and you've committed $2,400. So before adding a monthly payment, multiply it by 12. Then ask yourself whether you would willingly spend that annual amount on the same thing. You can also create a household rule. Every new recurring expense has to replace an old one unless you consciously decide that the new expense is worth increasing your total monthly overhead. That one rule prevents memberships, upgraded plans, apps, subscriptions from quietly piling up. All right, now let's look at your biggest expense, your rent or your mortgage. This is a challenging one because making changes is dramatic, but I've seen the tremendous lifelong benefits of people seriously rethinking their choices in this area. If you're renting, seriously look at what you could pay if you downsized or relocated. It might make perfect sense to stay right where you are, but often there are other options that can save thousands. Every single year in my consulting practice, I'd work with people and discover that they had committed 30 to 50% of their take-home pay to housing. Just that one expense. That's not sustainable long-term. It was difficult for them to make that change, but it was a world of difference. They were able to redirect all of that money to something else, like getting out of debt or investing for their future. So if that's you, seriously consider your options. Now, if you own a home, there are a few big things to consider. First, look at the interest rate in your loan versus what's available in the current market. Does it make sense to refinance? Run the numbers. If you pay private mortgage insurance or PMI, find out when it can be removed. Look at your mortgage statement. If you see a PMI charge, call your loan servicer and ask, what exact requirements do I have to meet to remove this? And what is the earliest date I can request cancellation? For many conventional mortgages, borrowers can request cancellation when the loan balance reaches 80% of the home's original value, as long as the other requirements are met. The rules depend on the loan, of course, and there may be paperwork or an appraisal with some fees involved. So just make sure you check that with your mortgage. Now, this is a perfect example of a bill that people continue to pay because they just assume it's going to disappear on its own. But remember, it's connected to the value of your home. So if your home is appreciated, you might be able to eliminate it sooner. And calling and checking that out could save far more than canceling several streaming services. Homeowners should also review their property tax record. Go to your local assessor's official website and make sure the details about your home are accurate. For example, imagine your property tax assessment says that your home has 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, but it actually only has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Or let's say the city values your home at $650,000 while similar homes nearby recently sold for closer to $550,000. Both of those would overvalue your home, and these errors could lead to a higher property tax bill. You may also qualify for an exemption that isn't being applied, such as a primary residence exemption, or one if you're a senior, veteran, disabled, or low income. Check your property record and available exemptions through your local assessor's office. If something looks wrong, find out how to appeal and when the deadline is. The rules vary by city and state, and an appeal, of course, does not guarantee a lower bill, but it is worth checking rather than automatically paying on an amount based on information you've never really reviewed. All right, let's now look at another expense category, insurance. If you haven't reviewed it in a while, shop all your policies again. Your auto, your homeowners or your renters, your life insurance, your disability insurance. Insurance companies often reduce their expenses and become more efficient so that they can attract new customers with better pricing on their new policies. But they don't actively reach out to existing policyholders because they're making good money off of you and you probably have no idea. Price out the exact same level of coverage with a quick phone call. You might be shocked at what you can save with the exact same coverage for the same premium, assuming your health hasn't significantly changed. Make sure to give each company the same coverage limits and deductibles so you're making a real apples to apples comparison. A cheaper premium is not a better deal if it leaves you with less protection than you truly need. So be careful there. While you have the insurance companies on the phone, ask your company to review your policy for any outdated information, missed discounts, unnecessary add-ons, and changes in how you use your car or your home. Now, don't forget the deductible price relationship. Higher deductible, lower monthly payment. But if you consider raising a deductible to get a lower payment, make sure you have enough cash set aside to pay that deductible when it might come due, because saving $20 a month doesn't help you if you have a $5,000 bill that you can't cover. All right, now let's look at another often overlooked area: your workplace benefits. People search everywhere for savings, and they overlook benefits their employer may already be offering them. During open enrollment, review more than just your health insurance. There are usually lots of other benefits people don't use often enough. Check out the retirement plan, of course, and the match, your health savings account or flexible spending account options, dependent care benefits, commuter benefits, employee assistance programs, legal services, tuition reimbursement, wellness programs, and discounts available through work. Make sure you aren't separately paying for something you already receive as an employee benefit. And if your employer offers a retirement match, understand exactly what you need to contribute and how long you need to stay employed there in order to be vested or be able to take the money with you when you leave. And then make sure you are maximizing your match. That's part of your compensation. Leaving it unused is like ignoring part of your paycheck. One big area that almost everybody can save money with, but less than 20% of people actually use, is medical flexible spending accounts. If you have a flexible spending account, learn what your particular plan covers and when the money must be used by. Many people think of an FSA as only for copays or prescriptions or big medical events, but eligible expenses may include certain over-the-counter medications like acetaminophen, ibuprofen, stomach aids, also first aid supplies, menstrual products, some medicated acne treatments, sunscreen, contact lenses, lots of other qualified healthcare expenses. Now, some purchases require documentation, and plans can have different rules, so check your plan's official eligible expense list. You can also visit sites like fsastore.com to get an idea of items that are covered and those that are not. Also, find out whether your plan offers a carryover or a grace period, because FSA money is usually use it or lose it for the calendar year. Put a reminder on your calendar well before the deadline so you have time to submit claims and use the account thoughtfully instead of panic buying things that you don't really need during the final week. This next section is actually huge, but I honestly know just a handful of people who look at this. But honestly, this can save you thousands of dollars, especially if you are on a high deductible healthcare plan. Most of us get a medical bill and we just pay it. They're super confusing with all the different codes and all the different providers, and sometimes come out months after you receive the treatment. We're busy with life and we just say, whatever, I'm sure it's correct, I'll just pay it. But some industry experts estimate that up to 80% of medical bills have errors where you overpay. If that's true, that's insane. Before you pay a bill, compare it with the explanation of benefits letter that you receive from your insurance company. You know those things you get in the mail, usually a pretty big envelope says right on it, this is not a bill, and usually you don't even open them. This is what they're for, and they're actually really helpful. Make sure the provider's bill matches what the insurer says you owe. Look for duplicate charges, services you don't recognize, claims that were denied because information was missing, or a provider that was unexpectedly treated as out of network when they should have been in network. If something doesn't make sense, request an itemized bill and ask questions. You're not refusing to pay what you owe, you are making sure the amount is accurate before your money leaves your account. For planned care, ask your insurance company which facilities are in network and whether it can provide a cost estimate between the different facilities. Prices can vary even within a very small area. Of course, health and safety come first, especially during an emergency. But when you have the time to plan, you are allowed to understand the financial side of your care, even though when you start asking these questions, you might get pushback. Okay, shifting gears now. Once you have looked at the large expenses, turn to the money that may already be leaking out unnoticed. Let's do a statement scan. Pull up the last 2 or 3 months of activity for every checking account and every credit card that you use. Read every transaction. Look for duplicate charges, companies that continued billing you after you canceled something, annual renewals that you forgot were coming, and small recurring amounts that you don't recognize. All of these have happened to me. I had an online news subscription that I canceled, and it continued to charge me for 6 months. 6 times I had to go back and argue to get that money back and truly cancel that charge. I had another small expense pop up that I had no idea what it was. It didn't even look like a company name. It took me a while to research, found out it was a complete error, had to work with the credit card company to get it removed. If I hadn't been watching our budget, I probably would not have caught them. But don't stop just at those statements, because subscriptions often hide behind payment processors or names that you don't recognize. Check the subscriptions attached to your Apple or your Google account. Look at automatic payments inside PayPal if you use that. Review your Amazon subscribe and save orders. Search your email for words like renewal, membership, free trial, subscription, and your receipt. If you canceled something, keep the confirmation email until you have verified that the charges have stopped, and that saved me with that new subscription. Then create a renewal calendar. Every time you pay annually for insurance, software, a membership, a children's activity, a professional license, or any other service, put the renewal date on your calendar with a reminder 30 days before. When that reminder appears, ask, do we still use this? Is there a less expensive option? Can we negotiate the rate? Would a different billing schedule save us some money? And if we cancel it, what would we actually lose? That gives you time to make a decision before the charge actually hits you. This way you stop chasing refunds and you start preventing those unwanted renewals where you're stuck for another year. One more thing on this. Occasionally check your cell phone bill. This actually happened to us many years ago before we were avid budgeters. We didn't really pay attention to that bill. As the money went out each month, it just came out of the account. We didn't think about it. Well, once I got on board with a healthy budgeting process, going through my cell phone plan was one of my to-do list items to try and cut costs. Guess what I found? A phone number that I didn't recognize. A complete stranger had their phone on our bill for almost a year. We had no idea. The phone company, of course, took them off and reversed all their charges, but if I hadn't checked this out, we would probably still be paying this woman's phone bill. Now, I want you to look for a different kind of leak. I call this the chaos tax. Think about the last few times you spent more than you intended because you were rushed or tired or unprepared or trying to solve a problem at the very last minute. No dinner plan leads to an $80 takeout order. No snacks in the car leads to an expensive stop at Starbucks or a run through Dunkin' Donuts or maybe even hitting that convenience store. A birthday you forgot about leads to rush shipping. An empty printer cartridge the night before a school project leads to you going out and buying whatever is available. An item that you can't find at home leads you to buying a duplicate. None of those decisions means that you lack discipline. They point to a system that your household needs. Ask yourself, what predictable problem keeps happening in our house that we repeatedly pay extra money to solve? Then create a default answer. I'll tell you what some of them are for my family. The biggest one is quick meals that we can grab as we are all heading out to our evening sports practices and games. It's also snacks and water in the car for the exact same reason. Or meds that we can keep on hand in the car so that when somebody has a headache or a stomach ache, we don't have to make that emergency stop at the pharmacy. It's buying birthday cards in bulk so that we can just grab one, fill it out, and put in a gift card when my kids have a birthday party that they forgot to tell me about. Keep a household inventory of supplies that you tend to buy twice. Set reminders for things like birthdays, school events, and annual expenses before they become a last-minute emergency. Another big one for me was to keep a visible list of fast meals and snacks that I always make sure to have on hand. Things like chicken strips, peanut butter and jelly, tuna, hummus and carrots, cereal, non-bread pizzas, burritos, you get it. These are things that any one of my kids can put together really quickly. When one of the kids says, "I'm starving, Mom, can we order food?" I can say, nope, pick something from the list, heat it up, go eat. Sometimes people don't really even want takeout. They just need an idea that requires almost no thought. The list alone helps to solve this problem. Meal planning works for the same reason. I cannot underestimate the amount of money I have saved for my family by meal planning. It's no exaggeration to say that I have trimmed about $700 to $1,000 off our monthly grocery and dining out budget for the 6 of us by planning ahead, not wasting food, buying things on sale and repurposing them, and avoiding last-minute takeout. The real savings doesn't come from creating an elaborate menu. It comes from making the decision before 5:30 p.m. when everybody's hungry and tired, and you are just done. So before you shop, look at what you already have in your house. Build part of the week's plan around food that needs to be used, things from your freezer. Choose meals that share ingredients so the remaining half of the package doesn't die in the refrigerator and make it into the weekly trash. Things like a rotisserie chicken can become dinner one night, sandwiches or salads the next day, super tacos later in the week. You get variety this way without purchasing a whole new set of ingredients for every single meal. If a meal freezes well, make 2 of them. Preparing 2 lasagnas isn't twice the work of preparing one. Eat one, freeze the other. But this is key. Keep a simple list of what you have in that freezer and when it went in. Otherwise, your emergency meal will just disappear into the back of the freezer until nobody can identify it and you just chuck it out in the weekly trash again. When you plan the next week, intentionally use one of your freezer meals in that weekly plan. I do this all the time with soup. You can use a similar system for household staples by creating a personal price book on your phone. Choose the 15 or 20 things that your family buys all the time. You know the brands, you're always going to buy this thing: coffee, cereal, detergent, toilet paper, pet food, whatever it is, whatever shows up again and again on your list. Then write down the normal price on your phone, the unit price, the best sale price you regularly see, and where you usually find it. Over time, you will know whether something is actually a good deal instead of trusting a bright red sale sign. This was so helpful for me when I used it to see that the bulk stores are not always cheaper than my local grocery store on some items. When a product you always use reaches your established buy price, noted on your phone, stock up on a reasonable amount. The important words are, these are items you always use. Buying something your family doesn't like because it was half price still wastes that money. That's a big problem when you do it at a bulk store. Now, bulk shopping follows the same rule. A lower cost per ounce saves nothing when half the package ends up in the trash. If bulk quantities are too much for your household, find a bulk buddy. I love this idea, and being totally honest, it's not mine. A client shared this with me years ago, and I have passed it on to so many people since then. Make a list with a friend or a family member and have one person shop, and then split both the products and the cost. You get the lower unit price without having to store a year's supply of whatever it is. Now, I just have to say this. If you love wine, like me, check out the Costco wine and liquor store. Costco has their own brand of wine, and it has some excellent quality and great prices. And in many states, you can actually shop at Costco wine without a Costco membership. And no, this is not sponsored by Costco. Now, this next section I love talking about, but some people just absolutely hate. So to each their own. Before paying full price for something, take 2 minutes to see whether you can borrow it, buy it used, or find it free. Start with your library. Depending on your library system, your card may give you access to a lot of things more than books: audiobooks, movies, museum passes, online courses, and even tools or equipment. Our local library has a sewing machine that you can borrow. Check out your local Buy Nothing group on Facebook, as well as Facebook Marketplace and resale stores too. Especially useful for children's clothing, sports equipment, furniture, tools, and items you might not need for that long. I can't tell you the crazy stories I have for myself and heard from others of things that they got for free because someone else just didn't want them anymore and didn't want to deal with them. My best example is a person in my town mistakenly received a delivery of a king-size mattress from a highly regarded company valued at over $2,000. They never ordered the mattress. The delivery company dropped it on their driveway and then drove away when they weren't home. But it wasn't even close to the right address, was completely wrong town. They called both companies, the manufacturer and the delivery company, saying, hey, come pick this thing up. It was huge and very heavy. Finally, the company reached out and said, you know what? Just keep it. We can't figure out the logistics on our side to make this worth it for us to come get it, so just keep it. But this person didn't need a king-size mattress. So they reached out into the community and said, hey, can someone please come take this brand new vacuum sealed king-size mattress because we want our driveway back. At that point, we were redoing our room and it was perfect timing for us. So we saved over $2,000 on this mattress. And that was just by keeping an eye on the local Buy Nothing Facebook group online. It was brand new and a huge savings for us. Of course, I have to mention that you need to be safe when you're doing any person-to-person transactions like this. Many police stations have parking spaces with cameras on them that are set aside for transactions just like this. So you can always choose to meet there if you feel more comfortable. Otherwise, if you don't feel safe, don't do it just to save money. All right, another heads up, because this happened to us. If someone is selling a supposedly new designer or brand name product, but they happen to list it in every size, like in a wide variety of sizes, and it's substantially less than the normal price you'd get at the store, slow down. Look at the seller, look at the reviews, the photos, the authenticity, and purchase protections. A lot of low price on an item like that really just indicates that it's fake. And some very reputable sites, very reputable, I won't name them, but very reputable, big, have a lot of rip-off sellers on them. All right, another overlooked part of saving is creating a maintenance plan and a replacement plan for things you already own. Cars, appliances, heating systems, phones, computers, roofs, tires, sports equipment, none of that lasts forever. Yet we often treat the replacement as a surprise. Create a simple replacement calendar. Estimate when each major item is likely to need a repair or replacement and what it might cost you. Divide that amount by the number of months remaining and begin setting a few dollars aside. You won't predict every breakdown perfectly. That isn't the goal. The goal is to turn as many future emergencies as possible into expenses that you see coming. Then make a maintenance schedule. For cars, things like oil changes, filters, tire pressure, furnace service for the house, cleaning appliance vents, sealing small leaks, things like that. Basic maintenance can extend the life of things that are really expensive to replace. So taking care of what you own is one of the least exciting and most effective money-saving habits that there actually is. All right, here are a few quick wins that you should check out too. Some of them are a little bit less obvious, but they do have real payback for very little effort. The first one is the annual renegotiation call. With your cable company, internet, insurance companies, as we said, your phone company, call once a year and ask for the current promotion or loyalty rate. Companies count on you never asking, but the people that answer the phone actually have a lot of power to reduce your payment just to keep you. Number two, unclaimed property search. Every state has a free database of money that is owed to people. It's actually your money, old deposits, refund, uncashed checks, retirement accounts that you've left the company. Search your state unclaimed property, type in your name, takes 5 minutes. People here find real money. Next is the phone plan audit. The budget carriers run on the same networks as the big ones for a fraction of the price. It's not like it used to be. A 15-minute switch and you can have ongoing monthly savings. Next is unsubscribe from retail emails. All right, subscription audits usually stop at like Netflix and gym memberships, but marketing emails are engineered to create impulse buys. Getting off those lists removes a surprising amount of unplanned spending. And finally, cashback cards can be genuinely great, but pay attention to the fine print on those credit cards. Usually they have rotating categories and spending caps. A lot of people leave money on the table by not activating their quarterly categories, or they blow past the cap on the 5% categories and don't realize that the rate drops after. The move is to know your top 2 to 3 spending categories, match a card that rewards those specifically, and actually check quarterly if the categories rotate. And obviously, none of this matters if you're carrying a big credit card balance. Cashback rewards get wiped out very fast by the interest. All right, so there are a lot of great tips here to save money. And once you start freeing up money, be careful that the savings doesn't quietly disappear into something else. Decide in advance where it will go. If you cancel a $50 subscription bundle, immediately automate that $50 to go towards debt or savings or investing somewhere or some kind of specific goal. If you lower an insurance bill by $80, do the same thing. Redirect that $80 before it blends back into your ordinary spending. Otherwise, you can make 10 smart changes and still reach the end of the year wondering why your savings account looks exactly the same. Okay, I'm going to close on the most important one that has nothing to do with any actual dollars and cents. But this ties all of it together, and honestly, it's the part people skip, and it's the part that matters most in my opinion, the mindset layer. This is where the habits actually come from. And remember that habits drive about 95% of our daily actions. So the way to win this game is to slowly shift your spending habits to truly align with your goals. To that end, here are 3 habits to add in your daily spending. 1, rethink how you decide if something is truly worth it. Price alone doesn't tell you whether a purchase is wasteful. Ask, how often will I really use this? How long will it last? How much genuine enjoyment or usefulness will it add to my life? A well-made coat that you wear for 10 winters can be a better value than 3 cheap ones that you never love and never wear. A family vacation may be worth every dollar if travel is one of your highest priorities. A trendy appliance sitting untouched in a cabinet is a poor purchase at any price. I call this cost per happy use. There's no universal list of purchases that you are allowed to enjoy. You're trying to get more life from the money that you spend. That takes a clear sense of what actually makes you happy and enough confidence to stop buying what's supposed to make you happy and what's supposed to make you look successful. Number 2, practice the pause. Before an unplanned purchase, just wait. Something small, give it 60 seconds. If it's something bigger, leave it in the cart and come back tomorrow. You'll be surprised how often you decide that you actually don't want it. This alone kills a lot of regret purchases. Number 3, check your reason for spending. Once you've paused, ask the real question. Why am I buying this? Because it fits my life or because I'm bored, stressed, celebrating, or comparing myself to someone else? There's no shame in any of those answers. Emotional spending doesn't make you irresponsible, it makes you human. But you can't change a pattern you never stop long enough to notice. You're deciding which parts of your life deserve more of your money and which ones no longer do. That's how ordinary people build extraordinary wealth. They keep their biggest expenses manageable. They're careful about promising away future income. They build systems for the predictable problems that used to cost them money, and they maintain what they own They prepare for expenses before they become emergencies, and they redirect what they save toward a life they actually choose. So here's the whole thing wrapped up. Find the money that's already leaking out, the errors, the unused subscriptions, the stuff you can pause or swap for free. Start with those necessary expenses first, since they're usually the ones that have the biggest impact. But don't underestimate the small changes either. Build systems around the big levers, especially food and meal planning. Catch the easy wins that most people miss, that renegotiation call, the unclaimed property, your FSA, your credit card categories. But none of this sticks without the mindset piece. Practice the pause. Check in with why you are actually buying something, and get really clear on what you want your life and your money to look like. That clarity is what turns budgeting from a boring chore into just the way that you live, your new habit. Now, your one task this week: pick one thing from today's episode, just one, and do it this week. That's the challenge. Simple enough. Choose the idea with the biggest potential impact on your life. Maybe that's checking if you still need to pay PMI on your mortgage. Maybe it's reviewing your insurance plan, or your workplace benefits, or your medical bills, or your property tax record. Maybe your real problem is the chaos tax and you need some more freezer meals or another budgeting spreadsheet. Maybe it's just finding out how much of your paycheck is already committed to recurring expenses. Choose one, complete it, then take whatever money you free up and give it a job. You don't need to make your life smaller to save money. You need to stop funding the parts of it that don't matter, don't help, or keep costing you more than they should. That's what creates room to save, to invest, to handle emergencies, and to spend confidently on the things that matter the most to you. All right, until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building the life you actually want.